Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that everything you most desire, the thing your heart has been silently yearning for maybe for years, is already yours. Not as a distant promise, but as a living presence, already breathing within you. Imagine this reality not as a projection, but as something that is already pulsing in the now, simply waiting for you to remember who you are when you live without fear, without doubt, without fragmentation. Maybe you're in a moment where everything feels stagnant. Maybe you've tried it all, affirmations, meditations, visualizations, and yet something inside you still vibrates with lack. It's as if there's an invisible gap between what you want to live and what you're actually able to feel. And the question that won't go away is, why? Why does it seem so hard to transform desire into reality? Why, even when you know what you want, do you still feel far from it? The answer isn't outside. It isn't in what hasn't arrived yet. It lies in the subtle field between what you vibrate and what you're still afraid to sustain. Because the truth is, the universe doesn't deliver what you want. It delivers what you are prepared to hold vibrationally. It doesn't respond to words, it responds to frequency. And that frequency can't be faked, forced, or lied about. It must be embodied. It must become you. According to Bruce Lipton, our biology is deeply shaped by the beliefs that live in the unconscious. Our entire body listens to what the mind believes to be true. Repeating mantras won't work if, deep down, your body is still vibrating fear, scarcity, or doubt. The acting as if, that phrase so popular today, has nothing to do with pretending. It's about coherence. Coherence between what you feel, what you think, and what you live. Because when that coherence happens, your nervous system begins to understand that the new is already familiar. And when that happens, the quantum field responds. Neville Goddard used to say, "Feeling is the secret," and it truly is, because feeling is the portal through which reality manifests. It's not the loose thought, it's the embodied state. The universe listens to your energetic signature, not your intentions, and that signature is made of emotion, of presence, of constant vibration. It's not about deceiving the universe with pretty words. It's about stopping the self-deception of living a life that doesn't match the greatness you feel within yourself. When you act as if it's already yours, it's not just an aesthetic choice. It's an inner recalibration. You begin to teach your body that peace isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of awareness. You show your brain that joy doesn't depend on something external. It is born from the choice to be whole here, now. And little by little, that acting as if becomes a living as is. Because you are no longer waiting for it to happen. You are being. The central point was never about effort. It was never about forcing a new behavior. The point is embodying the identity that would naturally live the reality you desire. And that requires courage. Courage to let die the version of you that learned to survive by vibrating in fear. Courage to let go of familiar comfort. To tune into the frequency of what hasn't been lived yet, but already exists in the field of infinite possibilities. So breathe deeply, because this isn't about achieving something out there. It's about becoming someone in here. It's about remembering with every cell of your body that the reality you desire begins now. When you begin to live as if it already were, because, in fact, it already is. It's just waiting for you to remember. Sometimes what looks like strength is really just exhaustion in disguise, and what looks like optimism is, in truth, a desperate attempt not to collapse. How many times have you found yourself saying, "It's going to be okay," while deep down, everything in you was still vibrating with fear, doubt, and a heavy silence that's been following you for years? That isn't weakness, it's human. It's the invisible conflict between what your soul already senses and what your subconscious hasn't yet learned to sustain. There is a kind of positivity that hurts more than it heals. It's the kind that refuses to acknowledge pain, that tries to smother what you feel with empty phrases, that says, "Everything's fine," when, in reality, nothing is. That kind of positivity isn't light. It's fog. It doesn't transform. It numbs. And by numbing, it distances. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to what you try to appear to be. It responds to what you truly vibrate. And if you vibrate scarcity, even while saying, "I trust," the dominant frequency remains one of lack. Bruce Lipton explains that the subconscious is the autopilot of our being. It directs about 95% of our behavior, not only what we do, but also what we feel, what we expect, what we consider possible. That's why it's not enough to just repeat that you want something. The hidden foundation of your being, your unconscious identity, must be aligned with that reality. Otherwise, every attempt turns into exhaustion. Every acting as if becomes a draining performance that cannot hold for long. And when that happens, you start blaming yourself. You believe you're doing it wrong, that you're not good enough, that the universe has forgotten you. But the truth is more subtle and more liberating. You are not broken. You're simply trying to manifest a new reality with an old identity. The good intention is there, but the vibration is still trapped in memories of scarcity, fear, and frustration. And it's that vibrational prison that needs to be dissolved. Not with force, but with truth. Acting as if is not pretending everything is fine. It's having the courage to face, with clarity and compassion, that there are still parts of you that don't believe they can receive. There are still inner voices saying, "It's not for you. It won't work out." And those voices don't disappear with pretty words. They dissolve when you begin to choose, little by little, a new inner place to live from. When you stop demanding so much of yourself and start truly listening to yourself. When you acknowledge your pain without identifying with it. Because only then does acting as if stop being theater and become embodied truth. It's not about putting on a mask of light. It's about taking off the mask of scarcity. It's about remembering that before you can manifest anything, you must embrace everything within you that still doesn't feel worthy of receiving. And maybe that's the truest first step. Admitting that behind the positivity still lives a child who is afraid. And that child also deserves love. Because when that child feels safe, your vibration changes. And when your vibration changes, everything around you begins to change too. Wanting something badly doesn't guarantee it will come closer. Sometimes the more you want, the farther away it seems to slip, as if the universe were deaf to your requests. But the truth is, it hears everything, not with ears, but with vibration. And vibration doesn't lie. Vibration doesn't disguise. Vibration isn't what you say you want. It's what you truly feel when no one is looking. Desire, when born from scarcity, carries the code of absence, and the quantum field responds to that code. It doesn't matter how many times you repeat that you're ready to receive. If what vibrates in you is lack, anxiety, fear that it won't happen, the broadcast is still, "I don't have." And the universe, as a great quantum mirror, reflects exactly that back to you. Joe Dispenza shows us that the field of infinite possibilities is highly responsive to coherence between what we think, what we feel, and what we vibrate. If you think, "I want a new love," but you feel abandonment, pain, and distrust, your vibrational emission is not of presence, it's of loss. And that's why what you desire seems to hide even more, because emotion is the fuel of creation. And if that fuel is contaminated by doubt or attachment, manifestation becomes unstable, inconsistent, or simply doesn't happen. Desiring in itself isn't the problem. The problem is desiring with desperation. Desiring with the sense that something is missing in you. And that sensation creates an energetic signature that communicates to the field, "I am not whole." The universe doesn't judge this, but it also doesn't ignore it. It simply responds. Maybe you're exhausted from desiring. Maybe you've asked with tears in your eyes, with your soul in pieces, with your heart in prayer. And that is sacred. But there is a subtle shift that must occur. Manifestation doesn't come from the repeated request. It comes from the silent change that happens when you begin to live as someone who already has, as someone who already is, as someone who can sustain internally what has not yet arrived externally. It's like someone who desires peace but feeds on inner conflict, or someone who desires love but abandons themselves daily in thoughts of self-criticism. Vibration is not born from wanting, it's born from being. And being expresses itself in the simplest choices, in the most repeated thoughts, in the way you treat yourself in the silence of your day. So it's not about wanting more. It's about tuning better, adjusting your frequency until it aligns with the reality you want to live, transforming the anxiety of waiting into vibrational presence. Because what you feel now is already the beginning of what you attract. And if what you want hasn't arrived yet, maybe it's not because the universe is late, but because it's waiting for you to be vibrationally ready to receive without losing. Because what is truly yours doesn't demand effort. It demands alignment. Sometimes what keeps you from living a new reality isn't what you lack, but what you're still carrying. Within us live old characters, stories that repeat themselves, voices whispering in the back of the mind phrases that no longer make sense, yet still shape our choices. And while those characters run the backstage, the life you desire continues to seem distant, not because it doesn't exist, but because it cannot find space to settle in. Identity is not just what you think about yourself. It's what your body believes to be true. It's what is imprinted in your cellular memory, in the neural circuits reinforced by years of emotional repetition. It's what you feel as normal, even when it no longer serves you. It's the role you learned to play to survive, the strong one, the lonely one, the one who endures everything, the one who is never enough. And without realizing it, you keep living from that old version, even when you long for something new. But there's a blind spot here, because manifestation doesn't fail. What fails is the coherence between the identity you sustain and the reality you want to experience. You can't create something new with the same old frequency. You can't receive deep love while carrying the identity of someone who doesn't feel worthy. You can't live prosperity with the vibrational signature of someone who expects the next failure. The universe doesn't punish. It simply doesn't force entry where the vibration doesn't invite it. When you desire change, but continue identifying with the old self, you create a vibrational short circuit, a static between intention and frequency. And that's why you often feel tired, confused, exhausted. It's not because you're wrong. It's because you're trying to manifest with a vibrational foundation no longer compatible with what you want to live. Acting as if is the path to dissolving that noise. It's like a bridge that takes you out of the old identity and leads you into the field where the new reality already exists. And it isn't theater. It isn't a mask. It's a transition of state. When you begin walking as someone who already is, even if the external hasn't changed yet, something inside you starts to reprogram. The brain creates new pathways. The body begins producing different emotions. The soul aligns. And that changes everything. Because what you manifest doesn't depend only on what you desire. It depends on the identity you choose to inhabit. It depends on the version of you that you feed every day with thoughts, words, and actions. And the good news is, identity is not destiny. It's construction. It's choice. It's the constant practice of remembering who you are becoming. So observe. Who within you is trying to create this new life? Is it the old character who fears failure? Or is it the new consciousness that already knows it deserves something greater? Because the universe, that vast and loving field surrounding us, doesn't respond to what you pretend to be. It responds to what you sustain as silent truth. And that truth lives in your vibrational identity. What if you could experience right now the vibration of the life you so deeply desire? What if you didn't need to wait to feel what in truth already exists in the field of possibilities, simply awaiting your alignment? Because there is a secret key to manifestation that doesn't depend on time, but on presence, not on the future, but on the now. This key is anticipated presence, a state where you begin to feel with your entire body that which has not yet manifested in the physical plane, but is already pulsing strongly in the quantum field. It is a state of conscious anticipation, where your mind, your body, and your vibrational field align with what is to come, as if it already were, as if it were already happening. The brain does not distinguish what is real from what is intensely imagined with emotion, and that changes everything. Because when you emotionally access a reality, your body begins to respond. It releases dopamine, serotonin, endorphins. Your internal systems adjust. Your electromagnetic field shifts. You begin to live, even if only for moments, in the vibrational state of what has not yet become matter. And that is what attracts. That is what shapes. That is what transforms. Joe Dispenza shows, based on studies on neuroplasticity, that the simple act of imagining yourself living a new reality already begins to reprogram your nervous system. It's as if you were rehearsing, on the invisible stage of consciousness, the version of yourself who already lives in peace, who already feels loved, who already prospers without fear. And the more you sustain that vibration, the more familiar it becomes, the more it stops being a dream and turns into a state of being. But this isn't about imagining as an escape from pain. It's about imagining to teach your body to feel safe in the new. It's about training your energy so it can sustain what you desire. Because if your field cannot hold joy, abundance, lightness, the universe will not overload you with it. It will wait for you to become vibrationally prepared to receive, not just with desire, but with inner structure. Think now. How would someone who already lives in peace behave in this moment? How would they breathe? What choices would they make? What kind of conversation would they keep? What kind of thought would they release? And beyond that, what kind of silence would they carry within? That question alone can shift your vibration instantly because it takes you out of the role of one who waits and places you in the role of one who already inhabits the frequency of what they desire. And that, in itself, is manifestation in motion. Anticipated presence is not a trick. It is a subtle practice, almost invisible to the eyes, but profoundly felt by the quantum field. Because when you begin to move as someone who already is, the universe begins to reorganize, not as a magical promise, but as a natural response to the new frequency you sustain with consistency, with surrender, with truth. Imagine for a moment an old knob radio, the kind without automatic tuning. You carefully turn the dial, trying to find the right station. At first, the sound comes distorted, full of static, as if the music were there, but not yet accessible. Then you turn a little more. You fine-tune the signal, and suddenly, the melody comes through, clear, sharp, alive. It was always there. You just needed to find the exact frequency. That's how the universe works. It doesn't deny what you desire. It simply waits for you to tune into the reality that already exists in the field of infinite possibilities. Because nothing you desire needs to be created from scratch. Everything is already vibrating at some level. The question is, which channel are you on right now? You don't manifest something by effort, by trying, or by rational worthiness. You manifest by resonance. The universe is not a supplier of requests. It is a responsive, sensitive field that mirrors what you are in your deepest state. And just like the radio, it responds precisely to the frequency you sustain, even if, consciously, you are asking for something else. If you are vibrating in guilt, scarcity, fear, distrust, it's like turning the dial to the wrong station, even while wanting to hear a different song. No matter how much you desire peace, love, or fulfillment, if your vibrational signature is still connected to fear, the signal you receive will match it, not as punishment, but as resonance. Neville Goddard reminds us that it's not about creating reality, but embodying the reality you want to align with. It's as if life were saying, the music is already playing, but you need to adjust your inner channel to hear it. And that adjustment doesn't happen with more desire. It happens with more presence, with more awareness, with more inner gentleness. Acting as if is, in truth, this silent adjustment. It's when you turn the dial of your energy until you find the exact frequency of what you want to live. And once you find it, You recognize that reality as familiar, even if it hasn't yet manifested physically. You feel it, you sustain it, you inhabit it within. And then something shifts. The external world begins to reorganize. People, situations, ideas, synchronicities, everything begins to dance to the same music you've started to hear inside, not because you forced it, but because you finally tuned in. This metaphor isn't just beautiful, it's profoundly real, because every emotion you feel, every recurring thought, every silent intention, all of it turns the dial of your frequency. And without realizing it, you are always choosing a station. The question is, which song is playing inside you right now? And does it match what you say you want to hear? Reality is not imposed, it is chosen, through the frequency you sustain most consistently. And the only way to change the music is to change the vibration. The universe doesn't deliver what you want, it amplifies what you are. Deep down, you're not just trying to change your external reality, you're trying to remember who you are, beneath all the layers of fear, pain, and forgetting. Because what you desire so intensely, healing, love, abundance, peace, already exists as a vibrational possibility. And the path to it is not a race toward the future. It is a reconnection with the truth you already carry, but may not yet sustain with presence. Bruce Lipton shows us, through epigenetics, that the beliefs you hold directly shape the expression of your genes. In other words, your biology listens to your spirituality. When you change your perception, you change your biochemistry. You don't just shift thoughts, you shift cells, and that profoundly transforms the way reality responds to you. Joe Dispenza, in turn, reminds us that the electromagnetic field of the heart, more powerful than that of the brain, must be in coherence with the mental image you want to manifest. Clear thinking is not enough. You must feel with truth, because feeling, when in resonance with intention, activates the quantum field in a real way. And that's when manifestation becomes inevitable. Acting as if is not about spiritual theater. It's about energetic coherence. It's about uniting intention, emotion, and identity into a single continuous vibration. It's about ceasing to live as someone who waits and becoming someone who already sustains what they desire. And this change is not only internal, it reverberates, it transforms, it heals. Maybe you still doubt. Maybe part of you still feels it's not possible, that it's too hard, too far away. But look with more gentleness at that doubt. It is not your enemy. It is the wounded part of you that hasn't yet been embraced. And when you begin to include that part in the process, without judgment, without exclusion, your vibration becomes more whole. And the field, which responds to your wholeness, begins to reorganize. True manifestation is born from the frequency you can sustain when no one is looking. It's born in the silence between one thought and the next, in the care you take with your subtlest feelings, in the way you rise in the morning, in the tone with which you speak to yourself before you sleep. It is in those details that the universe hears your vibrational signature. If you want to receive something from the universe, prepare yourself to hold that reality in your field, not just as desire, but as presence. Because the universe doesn't deliver what you want. It delivers what you are already able to live without losing yourself, without self-sabotage, without slipping back into the old self. And what if the life you've been dreaming of is already waiting, simply awaiting your remembrance of who you are when you live without fear, without masks, without fragmentation? Maybe that is the beginning of true manifestation, not when the outer world changes, but when you change the way you vibrate within, because from that point on, everything changes, everything finds you, everything becomes possible.